Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is Malaena Grace. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist with a master's degree in transpersonal counseling psychology. She's a certified in intuitive and energy medicine. Malaena is an intuitive healer and teacher offering holistic therapy, energy medicine, and spiritual embodiment sessions, as well as guided meditations, processing groups, energy tools, trainings, courses, and packages. So I'll have her website at the end of this interview. So this is my brief introduction to you, Malaena. But the question that I love asking all my guests since I started this 5 years ago is how to describe yourself using your own words. Who is Malaena at this moment?
Oh, that's a good question because I'm just sort of coming through a big portal, a big birthing portal, a big dark night of the soul, a big Saturn return. So defining myself on the human realm, I'm still working out
Yeah,
as I rebuild.
yeah.
But I guess what I can say is that I'm passionate and fiercely committed to integration, to walking the humanly personal and highly spiritual realms in an integrated way. It's been my journey mentally, emotionally, and physically that they're so interconnected that we
Mm,
can't have one without the other. So
mm,
I guess that's my clearest form of how I identify, besides the things you listed, my credentials, but the thing that really informs the way I work is the journey I've been on and is the platform and truth I have about needing all of ourselves to be able to do the work.
mm. Wow. You said a lot there, and I have read a lot about you and what you've been through, not the details. Would you mind sharing the experience of the human experience, per se, psychological, emotional experience of going through the challenge that you went through? Uh, would be, I think it would be helpful, not just for me, for the audience too. It's something that we all share, of course, but it varies, right, Malaena? We have different stories. So I would love to hear that if you could share.
Yeah, how long do you have? I'll
Aha,
I'll
yes.
I'll
Yeah.
footnote it. There was a lot going on, but what I find most powerful is being a therapist and being able to name all of the challenges I went through. There was a
Mm,
breakdown for me physically, emotionally, psychologically, mentally. There was hair loss and like my eyes would vibrate and I had memory loss and there were kind of periods of like psychosis and no one could diagnose anything because the physical and the energetic and the emotional were so interconnected
right.
that it couldn't be taken care of by one modality. And what I can say that I know to be true, I do feel like it was a nervous system disorder of being highly sensitive and being a sponge. And what I know to be true is it was my Saturn return and dark night of the soul. It's like it was just this painful shedding of letting go of all of these identities I had
Mm,
about who I was and who I assured myself to be that made me feel safe until I surrendered enough until there was nothing more to surrender. And then, like the phoenix, it's like from the ashes, then I can rise. And like a Saturn return, it's like it felt like now the next 30 years I get to build my life in a way that's conscious and in alignment for me. And I never would have left my previous life. It was good enough,
mm,
but it wasn't really perfectly right. And so that's a lot of the guidance I do is people going through physical breakdown, emotional breakdown, spiritual breakdown. Of course, meeting people where they're at in the suffering of it, but also trying to hold what the larger opportunity is within the breakdown, because in that vulnerability, there lies an opportunity for an ego death and for us
mm.
connect to our greater essence and truth.
Yes, I can relate to it. And I know there's so many people that can't relate to it. But perhaps not the way you have addressed, and like you said, seeing that as an opportunity to shed, to open up, and really kind of let what it needs to be here, which has never left us anyway. It's always here, but for some reason has been
Right.
covered up, right, with so much.
And I think that's why so many people are breaking down, is because the world is becoming very divided. More people are waking up and more people are in their shadow self. And part of the waking up
Mm,
is realizing that with empathy and with being a sponge and with carrying others' disowned energies and disowned parts of themselves, there is a
ah,
big process to be had there.
mm. What does it look like? I know I don't want to go ahead. I have so many questions. You know, we have a whole process to go through here with this conversation too, the human part of it and then the spiritual part of it. But I wonder, what does it look like? Just this tiny part of it, of trying to be empathetic without, or trying to love others without loving ourselves. What does it look like after we realize the truth that, what does empathy look like actually after the realization, spiritual
Yeah.
realization?
That's actually a group offering and an individual 5-session series offering that I do. It was learned from the Academy of Intuition Medicine. And for me, there's not a right way. It's about giving people the
Mm,
empowerment of choosing what works for them. So one way is giving you the tools and resources to ground out and to clear the energy that you have digested and absorbed for others. The
yeah.
other, which has been profoundly amazing for me as a therapist and not getting burnout, is if I feel grief or I feel anger and I gently and lovingly gift it back to the client, then they get angry or then they start crying. And
Mm,
what happens is they have
mm,
more of their own life force to feel, so therefore they are more likely to self process. So you're facilitating self-healing rather than an energy exchange. Like they leave feeling better because they got some of your energy and you leave feeling depleted and worse because you just switched.
yeah.
It's facilitating self-healing of like allowing them all of their process and to work with the emotions to self-heal. So that's really much more the standpoint I take. Of course, with friends or family or different situations, I'll choose to help digest it for them. But when it comes to clients or people who are really wanting to do their own work, um, it's a little extreme, but my teacher taught it as compassion versus empathy. Like instead of leaning
Mm,
forward and losing yourself in the relationship, it's leaning back in your body, like you're in a movie theater, like leaning back in a recliner chair,
yeah.
opening your heart. It's not setting boundaries. It's total love, total compassion, but not leaning in and out of yourself.
Right. That, I mean, that picture, it really says it all. And I love the way you started this, answering this question with, it looks different for everyone. So it's not linear. There's no, it depends, right? How we dance that dance.
Right.
Yes. Another question that I have for you, initial question is, did this happen for you? The breakdown, the challenge, the emotional, mental, physical challenges, did they happen spontaneously? Or did something happen? Did you do something, some kind of energy work? I'm just wondering how it all started.
I don't really know. um, I think it was a combination of many things, but also, again, I don't have a clear diagnosis.
Yeah.
And there were so many physical symptoms, so many mental systems, so many psychological symptoms that so many people had never seen before that it wasn't obvious. And something would set it off, and I would be set off for about a week, and then I'd come back. Um, one of the aspects I think might have contributed is I did a San Pedro ceremony, and my being in my body in this life is about choosing to be here in my body and work with it. So I think, going out of it to download spiritual wisdoms was traumatizing.
Yeah.
But there was also a lot of stress in my life I was unaware of. And honestly, what feels true to me is like on some level, I feel like I looked at all these lives and I was like, I want that one. Like, I want to
Yeah.
do the deep dive. I want to go through the intensity and come out the other side. And so I don't know. what caused it, if it's a Saturn return, a dark night of the soul, a spiritual emergence. I know that I'm much, much healthier now. And
Yeah.
and it honestly feels like it stemmed from my resistance to receiving the divine feminine. Like
Mm.
at my worst, I was 80 pounds and I couldn't eat or sleep. And I just had this woman, my hands were clenched, and she unclenched my hands and she said, pull up, receive. Like I wasn't receiving nutrients and love. And I made a
Mm.
decision at that moment to run towards the divine feminine instead of away. And I think that was a big part of my sickness, was not receiving her energy and nutrients and wisdom.
Wow. Yes, it really resonates with me. Resonates true what you said. It hasn't been my experience, but yes, it resonates true. So, would you say, in a general way, would you say that all psychological, mental challenges, and physical too, are they a call um, for spiritual awakening, spiritual awareness, or in some cases they just happen because it happens?
Well, when someone's suffering, I don't find it kind to say, God only gives you what you can handle, or
Mm,
like, um, you know, this is happening for a reason. It's like when someone's suffering, to meet them in the pain of that is crucial, because that's part of the human experience, right? It's like we're talking about human and spiritual. We don't want to bypass out of the
mm,
humanness, ignore
mm.
the humanness, and just go to the spiritual realm. So it's about clearing the feelings, being with the process, being with them in it. However, that being said, the holistic framework from which I hold it is that we love being comfortable. And when we're comfortable, we kind of stay stuck and we're not pushed.
Right.
And when there's a crack, when there's a vulnerability, it gives us the opportunity to come back into connection with our essence and to let that step forward. And so I do believe that within every difficulty lies an opportunity to fulfill the seeds of our fulfillment, to
Mm.
really evolve and grow. And some people don't take that lesson and bury it down deep within themselves, and other people come out feeling stronger or wiser or having a deeper sense of self. Um, I feel like we can transform hurt into healing, wounds into wisdom, shadow into light, pain into power and purpose, but we have to go through it. We can't transcend it.
Yes. This is a good time to talk about what you call spiritual embodiment. What's the meaning of it? And I know that you've been already alluring to it, the human. So there are two aspects, the human and the spiritual. So we
Yeah,
talked before, and it will be a good idea to explain them separately.
sure. Well, the human side is more my holistic therapy license. I got these 2 degrees because they mirror my whole Gemini process of integrating the spiritual and the human. I remember thinking, like, I'm not a Gemini. I don't have a split personality,
Yeah.
but it's like, oh, that was the split. Um,
Yeah.
the the human piece is working through our psychological, mental, emotional experiences that all carry energetic vibrations that run through our body and our cellular system, that really, especially triggers, it really impacts how we intake and filter the world. Like if
Mm.
someone at a young age told you all you had going for you was your looks, if I say you look nice today, I could have just called you stupid, right? It's like we're intaking through our own lens, through our own filter, which limits our experience and more importantly predicts our future. So working on the human plane is about expanding, healing, releasing, so we can be open to receive more. Um, it means working with, whatever arises, because these bodies have emotions and thoughts and limiting beliefs and all the things that are messy and beautiful about being human. Bypassing out of that is known as spiritual bypassing, which is when you use kind of the spiritual lingo to get out of doing the inner work. So people will say, all is well, I love you, everything is perfect. And it's like that for some people, the Dalai Lama and those specific people, like they're living in that world and good for them.
Mm,
But for a lot of
yes.
people, when they align with spiritual beliefs, it takes away from their opportunity to actually do the human work so that their body and their being can align. And the importance of that is like as we update our vibration internally by having more positive thoughts, by having more positive emotions, by clearing out trauma, on a cellular and physical level, the body
Mm,
upgrades. And in that way, we can come into vibrational alignment with the higher self. So we can embody our higher self, which makes it easier to birth our purpose, which also activates law of attraction. Like if you're embodying a higher vibration, the world has no choice but to meet and match a reflection of that. So
mm,
we're really trying to bring your higher self and your human self into vibrational alignment, which on the human realm means doing the inner work.
mm. I'm a student of Advaita Vedanta, which is Hindu philosophy of non-duality. And for some reason, I resonated very much with that philosophy because it goes as deep as it can get, as they can go in spiritually speaking. But they also kind of explain the whole process in a very scientific way. So it's very elegant and it's very it just feels so real, more real than having this conversation with you here now and being in the body, which is
Mm,
interesting. So, from their perspective, which resonated with what the ideas I had within me that I didn't have language to express, we are already connected. We are already
yes,
one with that, which we
yes,
call God, higher consciousness, the higher self, is all one and the same. There's no two
yes,
really. So, when you speak of integrating, it feels to me that it's yeah, that word integration kind of suits that the concept really well that you speak of. Open up,
yeah.
clearing, you know.
Yeah, it's not that it's right. It's not that it's not there. I mean, you think of children, right? They're just born in their total truth and vitality and essence and
Yeah,
consciousness. And for all of us, it's there. It's just the physical body is a container. Like there is a concrete capacity of how much it can hold.
right,
So if
right.
in your cellular system you're holding negative energy or trauma or other people's
Yeah,
energy or limiting beliefs, there's just a little less room for your essential nature. So as we clear out, or simultaneously, we don't always have to do therapy and clear out. We also can work on and call in and embody more of ourself and our essence.
yeah.
That work is one and the same.
That's wonderful to see. I have done myself a lot of energy healing and different kinds of somatic healing too. I have never done talk therapy, probably one session only in my entire life. I had been through a lot of trauma, so I know I probably would have benefited a lot before going through all the challenges that I went through, you know, all the suffering. It's more challenging in a way because in my case, I have to do it every day. I have to be in contact. I have to contemplate. I have to meditate every day on those. Um, they seem like concepts, but to me, they feel more true than this reality. So it's seeing everything as God, seeing everything as already
Yeah.
complete, whole. You are what are you looking for? So that's my
Yes.
mantra. That's my perception of this body, mind, you, and everything else that I look at it. So in a way, it makes it easier to relate to this the body mind that's always some in conflict with this truth because limited and you know the body gets sick and the mind's not always perfect when in terms of memory and thoughts. So I wonder if you do both, do you also kind of bring that into your practice in the sense of mantras and you know getting in a real sense getting in touch with the knowledge of truth?
Yeah. Well, I first want to say I'm just so glad that you found a way that works for you.
Yeah.
I know so many people who are kind of into the whole mantra affirmation thing, but it's not embodied. So it's not
Right. Yeah.
actually like really doing something. So the fact that what you're reading and what you're saying is shifting on a cellular level is beautiful and really supportive. On my website, I list different practices like
Yeah.
therapy, energy medicine, spiritual consultation, but that's really just to help people organize what I do. When you work with me, you work with me. And my educations and my trainings are there in the background, but really what my offering is my heart and my love and my
Mm.
support. And together we co-create based on the person's system intuitively and through divine downloads, like what's their best way to receive. So for some people, and also listening to what are blockages in receiving, like some people want to know everything, but like that's their structure. So it's like, actually, let's not know and let's work down here. But
Right.
yes, I bring science into it. I know a lot about, energy meridians and the chakra and the major nerve plexes. I know a lot about affirmations and quotes and mantras, and there can be homework or not homework, or there can be
Yeah.
group gatherings or individual sessions. It's really what I offer is me, and that I'm really, really heart centered, and in being so broken open, I just
Mm.
love so much that that's what I'm here for, is to help just love and guide other people in their own journey, and that we co-create that together. Like, my way is not the right way. My way is my way, and your way is your way, and your way is working for you. And that's what matters. And it's important to share our wisdom and to talk about it together, because I feel like we're in a time of isolation where a lot of people are
Mm.
waking up in their own communities, but the community itself isn't waking up, which is why I'm really interested in leading women's groups soon. But like, we're kind of all on this solo journey of needing to do our own inner work before we can all come together in communion and
Right.
community. And so just wanting to be that for other people. And it can look like mentoring or coaching or therapy or energy work, or we figure that out together and what works most for them and their system. And I'm really happy that even though you've been through trauma and had intensity,
Yeah.
that you have found how to bring the light in to heal and calm and restore those parts of your system that have been holding that for you.
Yes, I absolutely love the way you said that. When we met today off record, you said that, the way you introduced yourself was just, I felt the energy of the heart and just the presence, you
Mm.
being present to what is present, and the embodiment of that is here. And that's what we need to see more. I absolutely agree. And not just the idea of knowing the way and trying to pass that on in a sense. Oh, it's my way. This is the way to get. I know that there are methods and techniques that they really help, especially if people they are in an emergency situation. They are protocols to follow, right? Those are very important. But other than
Yes.
that, I love your approach, especially the way I know you have everything in place too, just in case. So you have all these methods and the work you have done, the studies, your knowledge. But I love, love, love the presence piece, because I think that magic happens. I mean, to me, everything happens in the present moment, which is a placeless, timeless. Really, it's not timed. So, thank you for that, for saying that
Yeah.
too. I think that's what we need more.
Yeah, I think we're not even aware of how much we are deprived of it. Like, as I start to
Yeah.
work on doing women's circles in person and virtually, like, even just not speaking and making deep eye contact, it's like,
Mm.
wow, we are so disconnected from something so nourishing. Men, too.
Yeah.
And so it's not just the work with ourselves, but as we embody the work, we become a representation for a larger call for change.
Yes. So we're talking about the human, which includes the personal, therapy, psychological, mental, emotional, behavior. But you explained that really well. And then the spiritual. There's so much to talk about that too, right?
Just go with, we don't need to go with an outline. Just go with,
Yeah, I'm looking at
you
like,
just,
oh,
yeah, just go with flow. It's okay if we don't get to everything. Yeah.
oh, good. So
Yeah.
So I will skip. I'm not linear in any way, and I love
Okay,
when
good.
I don't have an outline. Like, oh gosh, now I can be free. I can,
Yeah, please be free. Be
yeah.
free and we'll be free together.
Yes, yes, right. So one of the things that caught my attention, okay, everything did in a very meaningful, deep way. When you talk about the human and then the spiritual and then bringing it together, and then I go back and reflect upon my own practices that's based on what has been. It's almost like I love concepts. I'm really in love with truth. Anything that has this flavor, this perfume. Oh, this is the truth. We never die. So I really want to go deeper into it. We are all gods here. There's no such a thing as good or bad. Contrasts is just an interesting dance of life itself. So these things, they really caught my attention, and I can't help it but just feel very much attracted to anything related to it. So I was reading your work, and then I came across the law of attraction. So this is something that you also include in the work you do. So that's an interesting idea. Again, the law of attraction. I don't know much about it, but I have heard, of course, and have read, talked to a lot of people here, but I have never practiced any of it. I think I haven't. So talk to me. How do you integrate that? How do you bring the law of attraction into your work?
Sure. Well, yeah, manifestation and law of attraction, kind of like malas and crystals, are like hot topics right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we can either get the superficial version of them or we can get the embodied version of them.
Mm,
And we live in a culture where we're told, if I have a partner and a family and a job and a house and this much money, then I get to feel the resonance of that.
mm,
And it's actually backwards. When we feel and embody a certain resonance, the universe has no choice but to meet and match that. Um, there's a book, Creative Visualization, where she explains, like, visualize having all those things and feel in your body what it feels like, and then drop the visualization and walk through your life embodying that higher vibration.
yeah.
And then what happens is either the relationships around you will elevate, or things will fall away and space will be made for new and high resonance to come.
Right.
And so that's the piece with law of attraction, is like, we're doing it wrong. And on some level, we all know we're doing it wrong because there's so much stress and control in our society.
Mm,
Because on some level, we know that we're not bigger than the world and its energy to change or to, interrupt our plans. And so if we can just change and consciously, like you're doing, hire our own energetics, then in a relationship that's not healthy or a job that's not serving us, like,
mm,
we leave or we get fired, like the rest of the world changes. And so as we do the internal work, whether we're doing more therapy work and purging to make room for the light, or whether we're calling in the light and the innateness that we naturally are, that's healing the wound,
yes.
that all is related to manifesting and then building a life that is more in alignment and that is of a higher frequency. And it happens really naturally when we write down a manifestation and read it every morning. That kind of does something. If you feel it in your body and you walk throughout your day resonating it and holding it, that's a whole nother playing field.
Right. Right. Yes. So that relates to what you said before. So it goes back to the idea of releasing, of uncovering what is covering the truth. So more of that abundant, of that energy that's limitless can just kind of
Right.
be be part of this, of the limited, or the flavor of that can be felt.
Well, limiting beliefs. Most people have limiting beliefs or negative self talk.
Yeah.
And those all run a specific energetic frequency that is a lower resonance
Yes.
than, let's say, self love or trust or infinite possibility.
Yeah. My practices in my understanding is that we are whole already, that we are complete. Nothing's missing, nothing's lacking. So from that place of peace, I would say happiness too and joy, then everything else arises. Then it's
I
easier to
agree.
see these things. come little by little. It doesn't have to be big. It's almost like being a child again, and you just feel so grateful for those small things, for the tiny things.
Yeah.
So there's something about that that resonates more than trying so hard to fulfill something because you feel that it is
Mm.
lacking. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but
Yeah, no, it definitely should never come from effort. It should come from authenticity and that it feels right. It feels like something like a rightness that you've been longing for that maybe you didn't know.
yeah,
And you have the practice that already brings light and love into your system, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people have shadow stuff hidden or unhidden in them that could use a little bit of light. And there's a lot of people that are chasing dreams, hoping to be happy, when the happiness already is here right now, and the physical plane can take care of itself. And
yes,
so it's not trying, it's never about reaching outside the self. Everything exists within. It's just that not everyone, like you or I, have found their way to that, to the fullness of themselves. And it's also kind of like a buy-in, like for people who, are like, I'm interested in spirituality, but I don't really know. It's like, well, if you do the work, like your life will upgrade. So, if you
yes,
focus on the internal, the external will take care of itself. Whereas a lot of people are
mm,
working so hard on changing their external environment that they're actually depleting their internal well-being. And so it's just to help flip that awareness. But it's not that there's a lacking or a need for effort or a homework assignment or these are the manifestations of practice. It's like,
yes,
no, it's just how can we pull back the drape, like if we're, at a play, like can we open the drapes and see the truth of who we are? We're already standing there, but our brilliance and our light, some of us are peeking through, some of us are
yeah,
exposed, some are still
yeah,
behind the curtain. Yeah. And so it's just a little reminder that sometimes we focus our happiness on things outside of our control, which lead to stress and anxiety, and that actually all of our power and a lot of our power, if we shift our intention beautifully and easily, comes from doing the work within.
right, yeah. That's the message that most of us, for some reason, resist to listen to, right, Malaena?
Mm-hmm.
That everything's already healed. That it's within. The work is within. It's not really. It's not when I get the house, the car, whatever it is that I'll be happy. It's when I move my attention from this to this, which to me, it's from mind and body to consciousness.
And it's empowering, and yeah, and it's something we have full control over. But it's not a narrative that any of us, especially in Western culture, grew up in. So there's a practice and an unlearning
Yeah.
and a consciousness there, which is why your podcast and your offering is so important. Is because it's helping remind people that they have everything they need within themselves.
Yes. Gosh, and that is, yeah, that's the message. Not a message from me, somebody here, but it has helped this body mind so much that it can't help but do these things. And that's what I wonder too, a lot of times, Malena. Once we realize this truth, that to me I call the truth, and I don't even want to put the quote unquote, quote, I don't want to cover that up, but that we are what we are looking for. So once we get
Yes.
there, we are still dancing within the limitations of body mind and it's still kind of doing the
Mm.
things that we used to do or returning to them. Would that be actually a problem per se, or this is
Mm.
just the dance of life?
Well, I think you're speaking to the difference between dual and non-dual spirituality,
Right.
which is, one holding is like when we're spiritually awakened, we're still part of the human experience. And so,
Yeah.
in a meditative way, we aren't the mind, but we still watch the mind in its replay. And we aren't the body, but we still watch its reactions. And then the
Right.
non dual is kind of
Right.
connecting to the higher truth of all and sort of transcending the human. And again, I have what works for me, but everyone needs to find what works for themselves. The main thing with the non duality is just to be careful that as you got there. It's not through spiritual bypassing. It's not,
Mm,
it's because you've processed your own work and it's brought you into yourself that is connected to the greater good of all. And we are both. To me, we are humans in a
yeah.
body. We're born in for a reason. And we also are connected to the greater good of everything. And so some people lean more in one direction than the other, and that's an inquiry for them. To me, there's not a right way. I have my own way that I'm learning that works for me and my body and is more for my life contract, like what I came here to do.
Yeah.
Um, but being in touch with the light and love that connects us all, as well as being in touch with the consciousness or life force that is our own unique flavor of that, that's to me where grace resides.
Mm. What I wonder these days, the way I phrase it, is I see this, like this conversation, everything that's being done here, as a story. It's not, and I relate every day when I wake up. It's like, what's the continuation of the story about today?
Mm.
And a lot of times it's the same. It doesn't change much. And I see that's this woman who was born in Brazil and then she moved to here. And then I see the whole, I mean, I clearly see that. And that's not in a detached way. I'm still living that story. It's almost like telling the story and living it at the same time. It's interesting. It's almost like listening to it's an interesting, fascinating experience to have, to be aware of that you are actually watching the story unfold and you have no idea what's going to happen. But
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the biggest thing, everyone has trauma, and we are not our trauma, unless you're in a phase where identifying with it is valuable and
mm,
important. But in terms of it being part of our story, it's like, if you hadn't gone through it, who would you be or where would you be? And we could feel that there's a level of depth, that there's a deficit. Like somehow there's an inner connection to self, or somehow there's something that happens again when there's a vulnerability, there's a crack. Like I think it's in Japanese culture, it's like when a bowl breaks,
yeah.
they fill it with gold.
Yes. Me
Because
too.
the gold is the beauty in the break. It's like, this is the beauty. And it's not that we need to suffer in order to succeed.
Mm,
Um, it's just that, and I do think for a lot of people reaching for spirituality, reaching for religion, finding answers, finding meaning, like that is all good and important, and to do what you need to do to take care of yourself during that time. Because when you're in intensity, like you're gonna process it. It's pretty hard to run from it. It's just then making sure once you're a little more in the clear, um, that the belief systems that you've taken on and the emotional process that you've had is one that's been in service for you, rather
right.
than one that
Mm,
has more of a victim narrative of happening to you, giving your power away to a religion rather than using it to empower you, and just moving from kind of victimization to empowerment. And that process is, I don't like those words,
yeah.
but that process is important. Of like, when there's intensity, finding faith in other things is essential. But then when we're really out of the intensity, the faith that we find, part of it should be within ourselves.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Be found there. Yeah. And you said that earlier. And, we hear that a lot of times. It became a mantra almost for so many of us. And sometimes, I think it even a cliche, everything is within what you're looking for. You are what you're looking for. All that seems for some people, I think because they are kind of coming across that message from the mind, and the mind cannot grasp anyway that that you are the destination in the journey. So it's interesting for me to go into the process of knowing the difference between consciousness and the mind. The body is obvious, but the mind and consciousness, they're different.
And also, I do want to say, I think a lot of therapists, not to put a general box around them, but a lot of people aren't tracking people's window of tolerance.
Yes.
and making sure that the release and the processing process is actually in service of release rather than reinforcing the trauma.
Mm,
And so, the fact that you went through a hard time and then you found something that didn't dismiss or look away or distract, you found something that brought light onto and shed light into the pain. Like
yes.
that's just as healing as releasing it. It's one and the same. The shadow and the light, I think of like the yin and yang. It's like they make a circle. They're whole together.
Yes, that's it. I wanted to touch on something that you mentioned earlier. I made a note here. You mentioned soul contract or some sort of contract. I have heard that before, for this lifetime that we have agreed to come here and to live the story in a certain way, of body mind. So is it, oh, I don't want you to ask the question that, is that real? Because it might be, right? From if you, whatever we believe in, it becomes real. So talk to me for a moment about that from your understanding. What is that contract? And can we break the contract in the middle of being here?
Well, from the Academy of Intuition Medicine, which is a great school if people are interested to look up because it's one of the only accredited schools that actually gives you a degree in intuition and energy medicine.
Yeah.
We're taught about Akashic records and soul contracts. Akashic records, is like all your lives, like your main work, kind of like astrology, like you're born in time and time again for your soul to evolve and keep learning.
Yeah.
Um, Soul contracts, there's contracts with others, there's contracts with life itself. For me, it's not as much what I was taught. It was like when I was really sick and couldn't get out of bed and yeah, I was just going through a lot of intensity. It was really clear in knowing my beingness and my spirit, even though I was suffering, of like, if I could
Yeah.
look at all these human lives and these human paths, knowing that I would have chose the one I'm in, even though I'm suffering, being like, I want that one. I'm a deep
Mm,
diver. I like deep diving. I see that I'll come out the other side with all this wisdom. So it just felt like a knowing of like, I
yeah.
choose that life. I choose that option. I know for some people they feel like they choose how they're going to reincarnate. That's not my visceral experience, but I've been through enough where I don't disregard anything. Like, who knows what's true? Everything is true.
Right.
But I also think on a deeper level, soul contract relates to astrology. And I know a lot of people get astrology readings and they're like, well, I didn't learn anything new. And it's like, well, that's because you're on your right path, right? It's like you're being
Yeah.
told by the planets and the tides and all the larger energy forces of when you were born in to like sort of live and work a certain life purpose. And so that your soul can learn and grow and evolve. And some are here to heal, and some are here to hurt, and some are here to love, and others to be loved. And we
Mm,
can't know what each person's role or purpose is. But I think it's not a belief, but I think it's nice to hold in my being that there's larger forces at play than just my humanness. And I know that to be true.
mm. I guess for me has been the question has been not just because of the suffering that I went through. That was part of it, of course, a big part of it, but also the insights I had when I was very little. It was highly spiritual when it comes to remembering past lives and all that without knowing what
Mm.
any of that was. So I wondered why to be here in this new body and go through all this suffering again, because it felt that way. Like I've been here before and this has been done before. They're so familiar. This is so familiar. And it's an intuitive kind of thought, but it feels real again. I don't go there. I don't have that curiosity for some reason. If it comes to me, it's okay, but I don't really try to have mystical experiences or try to dig deep into my past lives and all that. For some reason, I'm not interested. So I'm interested in where do we go from here? Okay, we are here in this timeless, placeless place. Feels interesting, this body's experience. But like you said, the soul contract. So So if I want to break all the contracts and not be back here in the body again, I'm wondering if we have that choice. I wonder, do we have that choice? Like from you, yeah. Once you know you're free anyway, so why can't we just be
I
and
have
not
so
be?
many clients that say that they're like, I do not
Yes,
want to come back. I do not want to reincarnate.
yes.
Um, I could speak to that, but it honestly would come more from theory than from my truth.
Mm,
I don't have a visceral experience around choosing to come back and how that all works. What I can say is, in you speaking to yourself, you're doing your work without efforting. And you're opening yourself to the larger wisdoms that are meant for you rather than forcing
mm.
manifestations or forcing the spiritual things you think you should do so that you don't have to reincarnate or so that you do evolve. Like
Mm.
you're
Yes.
actually you're actually just open to being guided on the path. And I think
Mm.
that's the clearest line and channel towards not coming back. And and I also believe right now is a time of a lot of shadow and light. And there's a lot of shadow that's appearing, which means to be balanced, there's a lot of light that's waking up in people,
Yeah.
which means I think a lot of us might also need to reincarnate to create that balance. But it doesn't always have to be the story that the human experience is one of struggle. Like, I really believe in the next 5 to 7 years, because most of the clients I work with, some people are in community and direct referrals, but a lot are individuals. It's like they're waking up on their own, and I feel like soon we're going to all start gathering, and there will be communities of
Mm.
consciousness and all of us together. So it might feel different. And for you, I would just say to work with, it doesn't sound like fear, but to work with the resistance or whatever it is in you that's trying to avoid something,
Mm.
and that would be the next step towards it.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, for seeing that. Right, the resistance. I don't I don't feel like it is doing that anymore in a very powerful way. It used to be very powerful, and yes, no, I do feel that. I have to say, yes, yes, yeah, I do feel the resistance in some areas of resisting the human experience. Yeah, in some for some reason because it's something in me. It's so interested in depth and the truth and what's freedom. That's why this platform is titled "The Freedom to Feel." I think that's when I realized, wait a minute, I'm here to feel everything. So it's okay to
Mm.
feel, the body to go through the processes that it goes through. It's okay to let those energies to come and go and just look at them in the eye. So that has been my latest experiences within body mind and looking from that perspective, that broader perspective. I think that's what I'm focused on. In a way, my attention, something in me is focused on how can we make this experience more pleasant, more peaceful. And it has been, the feeling is real. It's been here, has been for the last 10 years since I've been doing so much work. But I still feel that is the main thing is the mind. So the mind is really great at covering up the essence. So that's why I keep
Yeah.
going back to knowledge, knowledge, knowledge to dispel, the
Mm.
ignorance of the mind that sees everything separate from essence and causes all the suffering. I think the moment we
Yes.
think that we are separate from essence, from God, that's when suffering sets in. It really feels that way every time.
Well, in the separateness, we can hurt another without hurting ourselves. Whereas if we're not separate, we can't hurt another without hurting ourselves.
Huh. Huh.
Um, I think that the mind, I like to visualize the mind as like a glass globe in the front of my head. And all the thoughts are different colors and frequencies and energies. And a lot of us are like, our face is like glued to the glass and we're like looking at it. And it's like, how
Yes.
can you pull your energy to the back of your head,
Yes.
sit in that recliner chair, and just watch the mind do its little rat race, do its little thing? That's just what it does. It spins and spins. It's not who we are. And the more we can disidentify with it, the more we can build our intuitive brain.
Mm.
And like I said, I do think more people are waking up. There is more community. I don't think that we need trauma to awaken at all, especially if we're born into conscious communities where
Yes.
mindfulness is being taught and we place value on experiencing our feelings and things that are starting to integrate. But for the people who are very tightly constructed and really wrapped up in the doing and the busy and the mind, it's usually a break and a crack where the light gets in. But it doesn't have to be that intensity. And I think that
Yeah.
you're a good model for that. Is it's like what healed your intensity? It wasn't that your intensity made you who you are. It's that what healed your intensity was finding the light and the connectedness to all. And that was powerful for me too. I lost a lot of my community during my sickness, but I did have a group of women who were miles away that would pray for me. And just like knowing that I was being prayed for and held, whether I could feel it or not, offered healing. And so I don't think coming back has to be intense or traumatic. I do think everyone on their own spectrum has hardships.
Yeah.
But I also think if we're taught from the beginning of a relationship to hardships, we can reduce suffering completely. I think it's like the Dalai Lama where someone says it's like we can have hard times, but the suffering is the experience that we add on ourselves. And so that piece that we ignore, we make it worse, the mental aspect, it's like if that is all gone and we're just in flow, we let the flow of hurt move through us. And then if nothing gets stuck, then a moment later, like a lot of times when there's grief, there's also laughter. And when there's grief, there's also moments of deep connection. It's like when we're in flow and movement, like it's all happening together and nothing gets stuck or sticky. But not a lot of us have open chakras and open energy meridian channels. And so we need support clearing or healing with the light and the love.
Right. So we're almost at the end. Gosh, Malaena, I would talk to you forever. I just would stay here.
Mm.
It feels like home to me.
Yeah, me
So
too.
thank you. I want to mention the services that you offer again. Please let me know if I miss anything. Holistic therapy, energy medicine, spiritual embodiment, events, circles, ceremonies, and you also have a store that has, I think you offer guided meditation sessions, packages there, and more, a lot more. Someone says coming up, I think coming soon. So you are adding more. Did I miss anything, Malaena?
No, the main thing is if someone resonates with me, we will work however we work together. Those are just different venues, but
Yeah.
yeah, they're all portals to the same place.
That's for sure. Thank you so much again for your beautiful presence, for being open
Mm.
again to life and being present. Whatever is here in front of you, me with my questions, and sometimes going all over the place because I'm not linear, and
Mm.
that it's and I actually don't try to be. I don't try to hold
Good.
back. So thank you for being open to that too.
And thank you for being you. Thank you for
Uh,
being you. This was very sweet for me too.
yeah, yeah, thank you. So MalaenaGrace.com, and the spelling will be there too. So Malaena Grace.com. But I'll have
Mhm.
that on the podcast notes on YouTube as well. Thank you so much again, and we'll talk soon. Bye for now.
Okay, great. Goodbye.